like on the topic of safety, and they had it broken out into 3 different categories. And I know not everybody's able to attend those meetings, and you guys don't record them either. Which I would love to have them recorded. So then, because the PowerPoints are kind of been outlined, and it doesn't have the guts of it.
Yeah, and then we also combined all 3 presentations and did a full hour and a half at Mariner High School, also for people that couldn't do the, because the board presentations have to stay about 20-25 minutes, and it's a lot of information, which you're going to see, which we're going to cover in about 25 minutes. So we'll do a better job of advertising, perhaps, if we take our show on the road.
Yeah, do some more outreach. Yeah. Yeah, and this is, we've kind of updated this since the reports we did in the spring, so this is a little updated. But I'll talk to you the portion about the safety planning we're doing in the district currently. And one of the things that we do when we look at safety and security in the school district, we use the all hazards approach. Because we've just heard a lot of information about one hazard, but when we're looking at the overall safety of the district, we need to look at natural hazards, so that would be things like earthquakes or floods, also technology sort of hazards, like say a chemical spill, or we've got Payne Field, an airplane crash, and then the man-made hazards. So we really are looking at all of those areas, and when we're considering those, there's a 4-phase plan that we have in place. So that's first, you look at prevention and mitigation, and then we want to look at preparation, and then the actual response, and then we go into recovery. So, and then we kind of in the middle there, you put basically it covers, there's the facility infrastructure, there's the relationship people element with training of staff, and then the recovery really also, and preventive, really works around the emotional, social, and wellness. So we're going to talk about those 3 things. And it also kind of filter it down to before the incident, during the incident, and after the incident. So that's really the layers that we're looking at as we're developing the plans. So developing emergency operation plans, we use the comprehensive preparedness guidelines. So the first thing that we want to do is form teams. And when we form teams, we're looking at many layers there also. You've got district level, building level, and it can even go down to department level. And you really want to look at the right people for the role. Developing our teams aren't about seniority or what your title is. It's the skill set and the right people that can provide the service we need in the plan. Understanding the situation, that's why we use the 3 hazards approach. So we really need to understand what the situation, what the hazard is, determine what is the goal of the plan. We're going to create a plan. What's the goal and objective of the plan? And then look at the plan development. And that's really when we start writing the plan, we're brainstorming, we're coming up with all the ideas around it. One of the things that we've learned, lessons learned, is plans are great to have, but you have to make sure you take the time that you've trained. There's awareness around the training, or around the plans, the training, and you're checking back on the plans, because they can be kind of fluid. Things change, and then you need to adjust your plan. So you really need to be flexible in your planning. So we're constantly using these kind of steps to review all of our plans and what we're doing at the district level. So we use the ICS 100, that's the Incident Command Structure, as our foundation for all of our plans. That is used with all of your first responders. Actually, it started in fire, and that's kind of rolled out. Whenever anything that happens, they use the ICS structure. So we use that same structure in all of our plans. One of the good things about that is we can create the template, and then that template can really be used for any activity. If you're going to have say it's curriculum night at the school, the planning team that's putting on curriculum night uses that ICS 100 structure to develop the whole team around how that event's going to go out. So at any point that event, if something happened and that event needed to then become an emergency plan, it would flow right into it. So you'd already have that plan in place. So we have those templates that are available that everybody can use. We also use those for athletic events. So creating those at the district level, we have an emergency operations center. So using that same structure, we've identified the team that would stay at the district level and would be all of the support. So if we had a major incident, then that team would activate and we'd be the resources for the first responders and people at the building level. So we activate those plans. We have the family reunification site and also team. So we've got 2 locations. We don't disclose those locations. The reason being it's recommended by law enforcement. You don't want to make your plans too public because then it alerts the bad people to what you're doing. So we wouldn't want someone to target a reunification site, so we don't make that public notice. If we needed to activate one of those sites, we'd have mass communication go out to the families so they'd know where to go. We also have a reunification team that is in place and ready to go if we had to activate that site, because the reality is if we were activating that, the staff at the building probably aren't going to be at that point able to go do that reunification, so we have team designated for that. We do tabletop exercises. We talked about it in that 4 phases, the training. It's really important to do the training. Law enforcement, they really recommend you do the what if game. And this is something you can do in your own home, do it with your kids. You do the what if game. It's something that can be a 2-minute conversation. Say, you know, when you were walking home from school today or walking home from your friend's house today, if a car pulls up, and what if? What would you do? And just get people in your own family thinking and talking, and then in the school level, we're doing that same thing, because what the incidents show is those first 3 to 5 minutes that really count. People really need to know, be able to practice and think, what would I do? What would my response? So we spend time talking about that. Rapid responder is actually a program that is put in place that all first responders have access. They can go on rapid responder and they actually have the ability to see all of our buildings, see all of our emergency plans, see emergency shutoffs, staffing, phone numbers, basically everything that law enforcement would need if they were going to respond to one of our buildings. They have it at one site that they can go in and get all the information. So we use that to keep that communication going. We also do a lot of prevention and annual plans. One of those we do accident prevention and investigation. That's where we look at working with staff and helping them be prepared. We want to make sure that we don't just treat the symptom, but we look at what the core issue is and then provide support around that. And then we also work on training the investigation. So when staff is responsible for investigating an accident, they can look at what is the core issue so we can make corrections. The crossing guard program, every school that has the crossing guard, we do an annual review of the crossing guard locations. We do an annual training with the staff and make sure that we're looking safety there. Driver requirements, this is something new that we added. Any staff member that operates a district vehicle and transports students, they go through a training and we do an abstract check. It's really closely aligned to what bus drivers do. So that anytime a staff member is transporting vehicles, we do that check. Volunteer clearances. This year we actually made that be at a district level. So the building still, you fill out your volunteer forms, but now those volunteer forms go to the safety department. We do the check on that FBI, the Washington State Patrol background check. We do the check on that, and then we have a district-wide database. One of the things that families have really liked about that is if you had students in multiple buildings previously, you had to fill the form out at every building. Now that we have a district level database, you can fill it out once and everybody has access to that. And then our winter weather plans, we're getting started on that, and the preparedness behind that. It's not just the roads, it's also our sidewalks, it's everything related. If we have loss of heat, how, what will we do in that situation? So it's basically looking at all of the people that play a role in those plans and doing meetings and trainings and all the preparedness behind that. Some of the safety enhancements. We have added over 500 cameras on at our buildings. So we have the security cameras, the emergency radios. We did a system now where every district or every building, they have their handheld radios. Those handheld radios are usually, for the most part, they're used for in-building radio to radio communication, but they have the ability to go to channel 1, and on channel 1, every building in the district can communicate on an emergency channel. So it's a very quick and effective way to get an all-district communication going with those radios. We also did emergency medical evacuation chairs. Every staircase in Mukilteo now has an evac chair located on it. We've done trainings around that. Also, these are badges, something that we added. It's been a couple years now, but this is probably one of the most highly recommended and foundational pieces that you can do. It's around situational awareness, that we train not only staff, but we train students, we train everybody to recognize if someone doesn't have this, then you assume they don't belong. And you question them and you talk to them, and what that does is really create that atmosphere that we're all engaged, we're all taking part of keeping our buildings safe. All right, so annual site assessments. We use crime prevention through environmental design to do annual assessments of our buildings. We're looking at things from anything that's going to block site views. So it could be shrubs, it could be windows that have a lot of flyers or posters, but we look at anything. We go through, and it's not a person assigned to that building, because we want a different lens that you come in and you walk around the building and you look for anything that's through, that's just kind of environmental design that you can change that will help with crime prevention. Parking lot vehicular improvements. This summer before last, we did quite a bit. We did some changes at a couple of our elementary schools, but it's actually, parking lots are one of the most dangerous areas in a district. And you know the congestion that we have, so we're constantly looking at, is there ways we can improve congestion? What can we do as far as helping mitigate the risk in parking lots? And then pedestrian walkways, the crosswalks we talked about, and then really looking at requests from the building staff. The evac chair that I mentioned before, that actually was a request, a concern that came from one building. When we corrected that at that building, we said, okay, if this was a concern at that building, let's look at all the rest of the buildings. That's been one of the really great benefits of having a safety department, because instead of just looking at singular events, we can take a singular event, but then we can take it district-wide and look at how it applies to all of our buildings. All right. Safe Havens International. Last spring, we did a contract with Safe Havens International. It's a nonprofit group that specializes in safety assessments. When they're looking at their safety assessments, they're looking at safety, security, and emergency plan. It's a very comprehensive assessment. They went through all 22 of our buildings. We did just receive the strategic report. And with that, on the strategic report, it really breaks down to 3 categories. It's looking at culture and compliance. So they're looking at what is the culture around safety at Mukilteo School District, and how is the compliance with that? Are staff aware of the training elements? They're also looking at systems and infrastructure. That would be things like cameras and those type of things. And then the training. Looking at, they did meetings with a large number of staff and looking at how aware are our staff and what are our training protocols and how do we support the plans that we put in place. So we're in the middle of going through that strategic report, and that's really kind of the base of getting started in some of our work. As I said before, we have the before, the following, and the during and the following. So before, we're really looking now at all of the information. either from the information we've gotten from Safe Havens, past experiences, and also that comprehensive planning guideline. We're looking at that to develop our next steps in our comprehensive plan around safety in Mukilteo. The during incident, really, if it's during an incident, our main focus there is life safety. That's what we're looking at. So we're looking at those plans and how to support that. So next steps, again, is really we're continuing our work, and this is the other thing that we recognize is we are continuing our work, and will be ongoing. This is not something that has an end point. It's something that is consistent. It's going to be a regular part of our planning here at Mukilteo. We're looking again at, right now, our drills in our systems. Drills, again, is that practicing element that it's really important for staff and students, so we're looking at that. We're looking at training, whatever training we can provide for our staff, communication. That is one of the things we've also heard in some of the community meetings that we've gone to. We have heard that you want to hear, you want to be aware. So we're looking at that communication piece and what we can do for that. And then relationship building. That is one of the things that we've found on everything that we've addressed, different support agencies. One of the common things that comes up is the relationship piece. As Detective Nevins said, it's not one person or an agency or the school district that's going to fix anything. It's the relationships that we form, is the situational awareness and how we work together to create a safe environment in all of our schools. So that's really basically segues to the relationship piece.
All right, I'm going to try my best to stand.
Can I ask one question back on your thing? You talked about the reunification plan. What if the communication systems are down?
So, well, if there was a situation where communication's down, and that's one of the things, especially when you're talking natural hazards, if it's a natural hazard, chances are all of our buildings, so there's going to be very little resources. So in those sort of situations, we're going to stay in the building. It's going to be a shelter in place, okay. And we'll take care, and that's how we'll work on that situation.
Okay, so I haven't seen you. How's your first month at Explorer?
3 weeks, yeah.
Has it only been 3 weeks?
That hasn't been that long.
Oh, okay. But it's going well?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try my best to stand while I talk right here because I'm a wanderer.
Oh, well, you have plenty of, you can wander.
Okay, I can wander, all right.
Yeah.
So social and emotional supports, you'll hear some of the